We've now taken delivery of turf, and I'm out on 9. And John and his team have been working on edging these bunkers. So I'll show you at 9 on how they've been doing it, and I'll take you to 15 as they've already finished one of those already. I'll spin you around. So I'll give you a closer look. You can see all of this is turf that has been laid face down on that shelf that I was talking about previously. And then what we're doing is we're using these effectively sandbags to edge the bunker. Now obviously these will break down, they're filled with topsoil, and what happens is eventually this turf is then folded up and over to create a nice clean edge. So as you can see, we've lined turf all the way around. They'll go sandbags sorry, all the way around the edge, and the idea of this is obviously to try and stop effectively that contaminated edge. Well, we don't want the clay mixing in with the sand, we don't want the stones washing in. So the end result, I'll show you out on 15, will be a nice clean edge. The grass can grow in and help us work as a barrier to stop contamination. On the 15th, so this is the green side, right hand green side bunker, and they have finished turfing the edge. And obviously there's surrounds that still need to be done, and the guys are just running some more turf so they can get this done. So this whole area will be turfed, including where the path used to be. They're also going to be working on the front bunker, but this gives you a good idea of how it's finished, and what I'm talking about, kind of limiting that contamination. So if I go in a little bit closer, you can see where the astroturf goes underneath, and then the turf is wrapped over. So again, just to reduce contamination, make the bunker last a little bit longer and keep it more playable. Ain't you agree? It looks pretty cool. It's the end of the week now, and I'm just going to give you an update on what's happened or what we've managed to get done. So we've got this bunker out on 9. It's all finished, it's ready to take sand. We're just going to let the grass grow in around the edges before we put sand in. So it may be another week or so before we can get sand in, but they are now complete. So again, these are GUR. So if your ball goes inside the roped areas or onto any of the new turf, please take relief. We've got the front right bunker on 9. That one's also done, the same standard, ready to go. So we're just waiting for the turf to root in, and we can get sand in there. And I'll take you out around the golf course and give you an update on what some of the other bunkers are. So the other 2 bunkers on the 15th are all done. Same sort of thing, but I'll show you that in a second. Out on 15, most of the turfing is now done. So we've got the old paths now been turfed. The front bunkers had all the turf wrapped round. Those of you are going to ask why the turf's gone a little bit black. It's just where it sat on the pallet in the heavy rain. So that will grow back in. Obviously we're going to work on watering and give it a couple of weeks and it'll be back green hopefully. Again, this right hand side of the green is all ready for sand to go in. We just need the grass to grow in a little bit, and then we've got a pallet of turf being delivered early next week just to finish off this back area. So this whole area will be turfed just to finish it all off, and then we'll be looking at early next week to try and, or back end of next week really, to put some sand in. We just need some of this turf to root in. Once it's rooted in, it will prevent any contamination into the sand, and we can get the bunkers back in play as soon as possible. So you would have seen during Green's maintenance week we were using a disc seeder. Well, we've bought a new mini version of that. So this little turf buddy, this is a seeder for all the drainage lines. You can see at the bottom, just at the front, there's some discs that are turning, and that's from the yellow container at the top. That's just feeding seed down into the ground. And obviously we've got the wheel behind just flattening it off. So Stuart and his team over the next few weeks will be walking up and down all of those drainage lines, just reseeding and starting to redress. We'll also have the big seeder out to address some of these worn areas from the winter, get some seed in the ground. You would have seen some of it's already been out there, but there's plenty more to do, and just overseeding some of the fairways. We're now at the end of the 3 weeks that FRA and the drainage contractors are here for. So you will see throughout the golf course there's some additional drains. They've done nearly 3,000 metres total drainage, additional drain lines since they've been here. So we've got one down here on the right hand side of the 8th. This one then picks up and runs across the 7th, the front of the 7th green. Picks up some of the green drainage. We think we've covered this hollow, so we're hoping that this hollow will drain. It will run out into that drain and into the 7th lake. So you will see spots around the golf course where we've run some extra drains, and that's just off the back of the winter that we've just had and learning where the water and how the water runs, hopefully to create or improve how dry the golf course is. Here's another example of some additional drains that FRA have put in. Obviously these were some wet points down here along this left hand side of the 18th. I know the area's a little bit scuffed up now, but obviously that will recover as we get some rain and get some growth. But there's some of those extra drains, and like I say, there's nearly 3,000 metres of these across the golf course, just to try and pick up as much water as we possibly can. Steve and Perry have been working on the irrigation system, so our greens and tees have been up and running now for a few weeks, but obviously we're still trying to improve. So we've put a new system in on 15, so we started to tidy up this area at the back of the 15th tee and connecting everything up. This then is a whole new sprinkler system. So we've got a brand new sprinkler system that runs through the middle of all the tee boxes. And I know it's a wonky line, but that does run through the middle of each tee. And then there is a sprinkler head in the middle of each tee. So brand new sprinklers, brand new heads to give us better coverage. So once we get to a point and we can start re-leveling some of these tees, and you'll see over the next year, 18 months, we'll be doing this on every tee box. But they've managed to do this in the last sort of 4 days, which is great. While Steve and Perry have been working on the 15th tee, they've also looked at dressing up this area. So obviously at the beginning of the week this was a pile of mud, so we've re-turfed this area just to tidy it up. So as Steve and Perry move along, we will be tidying up, and I'll go through a little bit more of kind of the clean up post these projects shortly. So while I'm out on 18, bit of an update on greens maintenance recovery. So it's getting there. Stuart and his team have been out cutting the greens. The fertiliser is now kicking in, so you're going to start to see the greens growing quite a lot. I mean, he's double cutting every morning now, just to try and smooth that surface out. So at the moment we've got 2 different types of grass. You can just see the different colours on it that are just growing at slightly different rates. But once we get slightly warmer weather and a bit more water on them and the fertiliser kicks in, they'll be back to normal hopefully in about a week's time. But they are rolling significantly better. So out on 18 now, a lot of these spoil areas around the golf course have been used. It's time for tidy up time. Obviously there's still some spoil areas that we're going to be using for the bunkers, but John over the next couple of days is working on 18. So as you can see, he's started to level it out, started to reshape. So we're going to be putting a bit of a bank up at the back over there. But if I zoom out a little bit, I'll give you a slightly better angle perspective. As John tracks all of that in there, it will create a bit of a runoff on this side of the green. The long-term plan is that this will be drained and irrigated, and I'll show you in a second how we're going to do that. But this will then be cut to hopefully fairway length, so it'll be a nice tight runoff for you, and it'll have a good shape to it, so it'll be slightly below the green. This area at the back end where this puddle has been forming, obviously it's where water has been running down the path, so we're going to be installing a new drain here to pick up all of that water. It can run through there, and then what it will do is it will run out the back where John's effectively created a ditch line, a swale line, as you can kind of see as I come round, that will run out into the ditch that runs across by the weir on the 1st and the 18th. So this whole area is going to be reshaped. We are going to keep this tree and try and let it grow, as it's grown quite well over the last couple of years. I think the water probably helps it, this willow tree. So over the next few weeks, obviously John's going to finish this hopefully by close of business Saturday. This should all be shaped and tracked in, and then we will run an irrigation line. So there is this blue line that runs down here and it goes up to that irrigation box just there. Steve and Perry will be running a new irrigation on this side, which is where that old black pipe that runs down the left hand side of the first, that'll be dragged through across the ditch, put in the ground under here, which will link up to the 18th green, and that's kind of the last part of the new irrigation system. From there we've got a planned route to go through this work that John's doing right here, and to put in an irrigation pipe which will allow us to irrigate this whole area. So the long-term plan is that this will be, like I say, a nice closely mown fairway fairway length area. Stuart Flood, our men's competition secretary, has asked me to remind you that the closing dates for a lot of the knockout competitions is either this weekend or at the beginning of May. It'd be great to see as many of you participating in these as possible. We've already had a lot of entrants, but obviously, as always, we'd like them to be as strongly supported as we can get. Have a great weekend, guys, and good luck to those playing in the famous grouse.